Ran, fantastic to get you on Real Vision.
Good to be here.
You came onto my radar screen all of a sudden when Punk6529, who we both know, revealed his Open Metaverse, his OM project, and I was kind of blown away by the experience. And then I figured out, okay, who created this? And I saw it was you, and I thought, I have to speak to you because you've done something really special.
Yeah, I mean, it's not totally correct that we created this. It was co-created with Punk6529, and the whole idea is that we have a platform that allows creators, architects to like pull in their resources and to create experiences on top of on top of our tech. And so 6529.
Yeah, it's your tech that I was really interested in, the OnCyber stuff. Super good. Before we get into all of that, I just want to hear a bit of your story. How did you get into all of this? What's the story behind it all? How did you start in the industry even?
Yeah, I mean, I started programming early on and got interested in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, like as a tech, as a techie pretty early, but didn't get in for a while. I went on when I was 18 and joined the program in San Francisco that would give the opportunity to young people to like not forgo college and to just do whatever like they might want to do in life. And so that's when I started going to like Bitcoin meetups, and that was in 2015. But still at the time, like I saw a lot of angst in like the people building in the cryptocurrency like space. So didn't directly get in. I was a bit scared too. Went on and built a bunch of other projects. I've been building stuff for a long time, and so built different things in different areas. Then, well, my family is in the art world, so like when NFTs popped up on my radar, I directly knew that this was something that could completely change the way creatives and collectors could interact, because it's something that's always troubled me. That's the imbalance in power for creators versus like art dealers, galleries, etc. And I thought that NFTs could be a way for people to get power back. Of course, like traditional art world is pretty centralized. NFTs are on top of decentralization, so like completely a way to change the traditional art world. And so the idea was like that there were a few platforms for people to be able to tell their stories with their art, with their NFTs, but none that were very frictionless. So there was all these big metaverse companies, and I like to call them top to bottom metaverse companies that have all these encompassing features, but like maybe aren't specific to like actual specific needs. And the biggest need I saw in the early landscape of the metaverse was to showcase your digital assets and immersive experiences in 3D and VR. But the only way to do that was to buy land on one of these platforms and to get an architect to build on top of that land. And it was just very hard for all the newcomers that we would welcome into the space. So we decided to go out with a solution for people to like get in within 5 clicks and no capital at all, display their assets, their digital assets in immersive experiences and share them with friends in the easiest way possible. Started there, and since then, I think I've been pretty proud to call ourselves like a bottom-up metaverse company, because we had this like initial need that people had in the metaverse early on, and just been building on top of that need based on feedback and product iterations.
What blew me away was the rendering in the browser, because we've got a HQ in Cryptovoxels, and it's shit, right? In Decentraland, they're all terrible. And suddenly I just saw what you'd built with OnCyber, and I'm like, you've just changed the entire game. How did you, was that an existing technology or that you built upon, or did you develop that yourself, the whole browser rendering? Because the quality is almost like it's an Unreal Engine generated imagery, but it's not. And it's so fast, and it's seamless across your mobile, your desktop. I mean, it's extraordinary. How the hell did you do it?
Well, I mean, like one thing that we have that's special compared to the other players that you talked about is that we kind of built our own 3D engine, of course, on top of open source tech. So like I think the most part of our 3D engine is 3JS, which is open source graphics library in the browser that is amazing and has been doing incredible work for all of this to happen. But yeah, like we kind of have a lot of flexibility as to what we can render and how we can render it. And also like another big part is that we partner with incredibly talented architects and make our engine be as like flexible as possible to like take those architects' work and render them in the browser. Um, and I think that's what gets us this output is like the flexibility and being able to work with such talented people.
And also, I've seen some of the other things you're developing, the ability to have like Twitter space style experiences where you can go with your NFT as your PFP and hang out with a bunch of people in a room and both chat in audio and chat in written. I mean, that feels like it's kind of game changing.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's exactly what I mean when I talk about us as a bottom-up metaverse company. We had no idea this was what people needed as we were building stuff. At first, it was just a product for people to display their assets. Again, very simple one, and have just been catching and been in touch with our community for more than a year, and just like learning from every single release that we do, and have like a very intense feedback loop between what we build and what we build it for, who we build it for. And so as we went, it started being obvious that people wanted to connect in these spaces. The skeuomorphism makes it very easy for people to like feel proximity with people, although they're on the internet, in a browser, on a screen, or through a VR headset. And of course, the VR headset makes the proximity even more important. And so the first use cases that we saw was like, okay, we build tech, and we're going to ask users what they want to do with this tech. So the first use case was Twitter space style conversations in these spaces, and holding, I don't know, guided tours, bringing people into a space, speaking about digital assets, which is something that is very strong. Like I think the whole NFT boom is because like we've all found an interest in art in the digital form and are able to connect around this art. So I think that the fact that people are able to like connect in a voice, like in a more presential manner in these spaces was an important one. But then we saw like music events, like music concerts, etc. And I used to be a DJ kind of like for as a hobby, and I've DJed a few times in the spaces, and it's been quite incredible. Like I DJed on 6529's roof, for example, on OM's on Museum District's roof. It was quite an interesting experience. And I mean, like, again, I think we don't have it all figured out. And I think that in this space, anyone who tells you they have it all figured out about what the metaverse is, I wouldn't believe too much about it. But we know that like we run experiments, we're very open-minded as to what they can become, and just try things out. And when they work, we make them work. If not, we can drop them and go on to other ideas. But like this, for example, when I would DJ in physical events, and when I DJed in in this rooftop, with like all my roof people, all the roof friends, it was as special as it is when you DJ in a physical space. And I don't know exactly why. I don't know the exact intricacies of why it makes it more special that you're out there and there's an actual DJ set in front of you and there's actual people in front of you. But it truly felt like when I finished it, it lasted 3 hours and a half. And when I finished, it really felt like we all had lived this moment together, almost as if it was a physical party.
Were you using VR for that, or did you just use the normal screen?
Not even. I had I had like a DJ set on my computer, like virtual DJ, which is the thing I learned how to DJ with when I was 11 years old. And so like I had this downloaded on my computer, and I had my computer screen open and the DJ and the DJ deck next to it. And I mean, like, it just felt, I mean, the immersiveness you don't need to be in VR. I mean, like, there's a lot of things to provide immersiveness and this feeling of like being connected to people in a physical space, although you're through a screen. And I don't think that like VR is that needed. I think there's so many other factors that come in place that just make people feel in a physical space and feel the connection with others. And I think,
but OnCyber is VR compatible as well, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure, it is.
I mean, that's super cool. You interact in whatever way you want, and as you said, it's hugely immersive.
Yeah, and I mean, the idea again, like the choice of technology ever since the start was that we would be able to just be accessible to anyone possible. Again, as we started, so I started building this company from Morocco, and like I thought like the idea would be that anyone across the world, whatever their device capabilities, whatever their internet connection, whatever their capital, I guess, when they're creating a gallery, would be able to use the product. Not just anyone like that's close to like some server farms that can do pixel stream, like they can consume pixel streamed content, or it was really to be accessible to all. And so the choice of technology made it so that this very same experience can run exactly the same way in mobile and VR and in desktop from the suburbs of from anywhere in Morocco or in Africa, and in the same way as anywhere in the US. So the choice of tech was exactly for that, and I think we made a pretty good one.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've kind of changed the whole game. I don't know if you know it yet because you've been building it, so you don't really see what you've done. But the moment I saw what you've done, I thought you've changed everything here because not only was the experience great and the ability, as I said, to move across any way I want to look at it, and I could even do it in VR. But then I think there was another big breakthrough was this community element because Discord is so shit. And here we can go and we're going to do it with Real Vision. So we're talking to Punk6529 about, creating this for our NFT community. So that's where they can meet. So we can have, all hands meetings and you can talk about stuff in a way that feels more in person than a Twitter Spaces or some other thing.
Yeah, and I mean, just the fact that we can tap into so many more dimensions than a product that's not native to Web3 or than the physical world itself as well. Like the fact that we can do token gating embedded in the physical proximity. And we're really just at the start of what we're doing. The idea was, again, like to start to just build the very first layer of what it could become, and then let the community tell us where to go next, and stay very, very connected and down to earth, and have some type of like have a very strong connection with our community members to make sure we always fulfill their needs and their actual real life needs.
And how have you formed a community? Have you kind of tokenized yourselves, or how have you got a community around OnCyber?
We haven't yet, but what the way we formed the community is just to build the most accessible tools possible. So the idea, again, like we wanted to build the best product we could, the most frictionless product we could, and people have rallied around this product through different communities, whether that's with Artifact and the Clonexes. I don't know if you've seen that, but they built with Artifact, we built two different spaces. And I think that the first space that we built with Artifact was the biggest onboarding event for metaverse creators probably ever. We airdropped like
I've not seen it.
Yeah, it's a very, very special. So it was right before the Nike acquisition, and so that's, I think, put even more like fire on the kettle. But yeah, essentially, like all their holders got the space airdropped to them that they could go into OnCyber and play with. So it also, in terms of like how a brand connects with their audiences and their fans, is a very, very interesting concept that I believe is revolutionary, but we haven't really tapped that much. So essentially what happened is Artifact designed this space pod, this thing called the space pod, which is like almost like an apartment, but an Artifact's brand, and airdropped it to all of their holders, so all the Clonex holders. Then you had 9,000 editions of a certain space that belonged to each one of these Clonex, and they were able to use that space, so use Artifact's brand image, merge it with their NFTs and their personality and like the NFTs that they collect and their taste, etc., and just build one experience that is their metaverse home. Onboarding wise, it was the most incredible event we've ever run, and just like as a first test of like one big brand interacting with their community through this like branded Instagram profile. Because if anything, OnCyber is very much of a social identity layer in Web3. Someone will use an OnCyber space to describe who they are in Web3 and what NFTs they collect and what really they believe in a sense. Like if you go into my OnCyber space, you'll understand so much more about who I am than going through my Instagram profile. Because on my OnCyber space, you have my taste, you have what artists I like, you have what communities I'm a part of, all under one roof. And so with Artifact, same thing. Like we went and Artifact was able to just give 9,000 branded Instagram profiles to their community, and their community was able to play around with Artifact's brand image in their own home, and mix it with their own identity to create something unique out of 9,000. So we have 9,000 people that have pods, but all of them are unique because of the way they decorated these pods.
It feels to me that this is the next phase of what a website is. I don't think websites exist in 10 years' time? Because I can just give you a coordinate and you can create these incredible, unique experiences that are much more interactive, intuitive, and deeper, as you say. It can really get across a brand or a person or a band or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I think that generally, I think the idea of a brand is to be able to create experiences for your community. Like we see it a lot in Web3, but in general, even in the luxury market, you see a lot of brands in the luxury sector just being experience creators for their audiences in general, and that's the brand that they sell to them, and then the clothes are part of it, but it's more about the experience. And so I think that the way that a brand could make an experience be felt in the digital space is so much more interesting and intricate with a 3D space than with a 2D space. Obviously, there are so many more dimensions that you can tap in, and social connections that can be made in the metaverse. I don't use the word metaverse that much, although like it's very contradictory because I do work in on the metaverse company. But generally, like this immersive web is a way for people to just have more dimensions to play with, to communicate ideas and to communicate brand and identity and personality. So I do believe so that as well, that the future of the web is definitely immersive, and those brands, people, communities will be interacting and showcasing who they are through 3D spaces for sure.
I've been thinking this through. Do we even need buildings and kind of spaces in the traditional sense? Because 3D can be kind of limitless if we take the restrictions of what we know from the world around us.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we're still at a very early phase. And I think that people still want to have some type of skeuomorphism and feel a connection to the real world. Like if they go into a space that's completely conceptual, and we have quite a few spaces that are conceptual in the works that could never happen in the real world or in this current universe. I'm not in this current universe, we never know, but like not in the real world. And so people don't connect that much, at least for now, don't connect that much with these spaces than they connect with something that's very skeuomorphic and reminds them of the real world. So like I think that the fact that, at least for the moment, most of our users have like come to OnCyber so that they could feel like these assets are real, because they are. There is a tangibility on these assets. It's recorded on chain, but it's not understandable for every single person in the world that those assets are tangible and real. And so I think that OnCyber like just pushes even more this narrative that these assets are real assets that exist, and seeing them in 3D with a border, with like a frame, etc., just makes it even more real. So I think that for the moment, the more abstract conceptual places would just take away a bit from that need for people to feel the tangibility of these assets and feel the reality of these assets. But I think it will come as the use cases, we explore more use cases. And
yeah, I guess it's just one step too far for people to onboard into something entirely new. You need to kind of lead them there. So talk to me about the decentralization and the kind of Web3 integration, because there's metaverses or immersive experiences, and then there's Web3 immersive experiences. What's the difference, and what are you guys working on?
Well, I mean, first off, all the asset stack is decentralized assets. We don't intend to like stay only on decentralized assets forever, but at least people can come play around with assets that they would be able to play around with than any other platform that has a Web3 integration. Number two, I think what's very important for us in the fact that we are Web3 native is that everything we do answers to the Web3 ethos of like being open, of trying not to hold too much power in our hands, of trying to like let users export their metadata, and that's something we have planned over time, of letting of like being on top of standards that are open. So for example, every single one of our 3D spaces are on top of the GLTF standard, which is an open standard for the web for 3D models. And so all of those are stored like transparently on IPFS. Anyone can go and download them, and usually, if you own it, like you have the right to use it anywhere you want. There's no restriction as to like what you can do with it. So I think that the fact that the whole team, the culture, our mission is very well embedded in the Web3 ideals makes it very easy for us to keep on like innovating while keeping the same values and staying on a good path to decentralization. And of course, like I think that community ownership will come at some point. We've seen projects all around that have done that too fast, and we don't want to be doing that too fast. I think
Agreed.
we've made a lot of progress until now. The idea is to like bring NFTs to the world. I think we have a very strong appeal for people in the mainstream to understand what NFTs are through these immersive experiences that play around with NFTs and make them more real. So the idea wouldn't be to blow this off before we're able to achieve mainstream scale. And so, of course, like it will come. We're going to keep our big ideals of decentralization and keep on trying to do everything we can in the open. But we're not going to rush community ownership or a token or anything like that.
So how many of you are at OnCyber? How many people
Well,
work on this?
one would think we're more than 100, but we're not. We're actually only 20 people, 20 in a bit.
How the hell have you done that? I heard this as well when I was speaking to 6529. Yeah. I'm like, how the hell did you do this with so few people and so fast? How long did it take you?
It's an interesting one, and I think that goes into management and so we were born in a remote world. Like we started during COVID and started our interactions as a team in a remote world. Actually, we got to about 60,000 users when we were just two people. It was me and one other dev, whose name is Abdullah, building the product. And we had one other person help us to do community stuff and Discord, etc. But like we were just to design, dev, community, marketing, whatever that might be. We've never done marketing, but they'll still call it marketing.
You had a kind of minimum viable product at that point. With
just two of us for the first 6 months. And I didn't want to go raise money or go and hire too many people before I was 100% sure that this was the meaning that we were supposed to, like, that we had a clear mission for everyone to get on boarded. I'm very intentional about this. Like bringing people into the team is a very important step for them in their lives. And if they come, it has to be like very purposeful. So I didn't want to bring more people into the team before we knew that I could provide a purpose for all these team members to build something great. And so once we were ready to go and hire, I just went and hired the top people I could find, but in a very slow way. Like we just kept on hiring very, very specific people onto the team. And team today, yes, it's 20 people, but truly we have the firepower of hundreds of people together.
Yeah, because I mean, how the hell are you dealing with the incoming, 6529's, demands are quite high because he's got big ambitions based on what you're doing. And plus, clearly, every brand and everybody else is going to be looking at it because, well, we'll come on to Decentraland and others in a bit, but how are you dealing with that workload? I'm asking these questions selfishly because at Real Vision, we're thinking, how the hell do we do what we want to do? And seeing you've done it with so few people is incredible.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's interesting, and I don't think I think one day I'll have to sit down and really think what went right in the management part and in the culture part. I think what's for sure is that we've built a very, very special culture in the team. Every single person I work with, I truly admire, and every single person on the team is better at what they do than I am. At what they do, of course. So it was pretty easy to hire every single hire in the team. Now, the fact that we were born in a remote environment and managed to make the team very personal, very close without having to see each other, just made it very easy for all of us to be super productive, work very well together, not step on each other's feet, and just keep on working and have. I mean, also, I think that the fact that this is one of the coolest things we could ever be building, and just gathered around a team of very good builders to build one of the coolest things to be built right now, probably helped. Like everyone's addicted with this vision, addicted with the product itself, and I mean it's so much fun that I don't see myself doing any other thing in my free time or not.
How long did it take from launching in COVID to actually having a working product of some sort where you can show, okay, we've got something here?
I mean, like, so we had a product pretty early. Like it took us me and Abdullah, this other dev I was working with for a bit, we had a working product for like a virtual gallery because I was very close to the world of art. We kind of wanted to like see how we could do that in the browser, but it was still a very early version and nothing close to what we have today. And it took us about 3 weeks, a month of repurposing to make it work for NFTs. Directly launched, and the product was terrible. It was one of the, I mean, I don't mean to say it like that because still, like it was good enough for people to come use it initially, but it was very, very badly designed. A lot of things that weren't working. Actually, a very funny story is that one of the things that wasn't working is that we went and built this product, and we were using the OpenSea API at the time that only gives you 30 requests, 30 assets per request per request when you use their API. And Eric Calderon, who's the founder of Artblocks, more known as Snowfro, was one of the first users that had more than 30 assets onto OnCyber. And one day I receive a message where he tells me, "Hey, like I've been spending $500 of gas just so I could build this gallery because your requests don't give me all my assets." And so this is one of the ways we've been building this product, is that we put things out and we try them out. Sometimes, I mean, like there's very unexpected things to happen. Like someone who has more than 30 assets, and I mean, today we have some users that have more than 5,000 assets. So, but at the time, we had no idea some people could ever own more than 30 NFTs, and just fix that along the way. So yeah, product was terrible starting up, but we managed to just make the right hires at the right moments in a very magical way. And every single person we would not be here today without every single person on the team right now.
Amazing. And just so people understand, what do you think the crucial difference is between what you're doing and what Decentraland, Sandbox, Cryptovoxels are doing? Because they're very, very different experiences. I mean, they just feel like they're 50 years old versus what you've done.
I think all of them have interesting use cases and will have interesting use cases as this gets built out. I think one main difference that we have with these companies is that whereas I would categorize them as top to bottom metaverse companies, they have this idea of what this big immersive world should be and just do a lot of different things for that immersive world, that it's an open world actually and you can walk around, etc. We just decided to be a bottom up metaverse company. And instead of having a huge idea of what we want to do, we were completely confident that we had no idea what this metaverse should be. But we knew that some people had a certain need to do initial stuff in an immersive web, and decided to fulfill those needs. And while starting very small, it was like one small gallery space that we designed in a very rushing manner because we only had 3 days to launch. And anyway, the first space out there, which is still alive, it's called Cyber Classic. We decided to start with that and just build this open world from this small space. So, for example, when it came to think about spatial proximity, and that's something we're going to unveil very soon, but already has been worked on, and you could see see it in 6529's open OM or in the loot pods or in a few spaces in OnCyber, is that instead of having a huge open world with things next to each other and have the skeuomorphism there, instead we have portals between spaces. And so instead of spatial proximity in the physical sense, you have spatial proximity, but based on almost HTTP links in an immersive way. So I think that's the best successor to connecting spaces together and different experiences together. If you think of each space in OnCyber as an individual web page, because they are all individual web pages, then the best way to connect those together is through links. And
it was exactly my thought. I don't see why proximity matters when you've got portals into elsewhere. So, the idea of, well, you should build a house because Snoop Dogg's built something doesn't really make sense, because I can leap from anywhere to anywhere because there are no roads.
There is the one idea that is interesting in the spatial proximity side, is that I think the metaverse will be a game of shelling points, and a few spaces will attract most of the traffic. So I do think that some spaces will have some people will want to be next to certain spaces, whether that's in a physical way or through portals. If you want to be close to a certain place, then you have a portal in there, and you might buy that portal for an amount of money or not, if it's free or whatever. But
that's an interesting idea. You could sell the portals as assets. So,
well, I mean, again, and these ideas again we have a lot of very interesting ideas, a lot of very interesting concepts that weren't there before we arrived. Like the fact that I believe we were the first to sell architecture as NFTs. So we're a completely user-generated immersive world. We have never created a single asset ourselves. We've created Cyber Classic, which I just spoke about, but it's a very bad creation. But otherwise, we've never really created the spaces ourselves. And the idea again here is that in order for this big immersive world to be created, we want a lot of very interesting, very good architects to be contributing to the world. So what we do is that instead of selling land in square meters, we let these architects put their creations, the scarcity behind their creativity and their experience, and they just transfer that scarcity onto a space that becomes scarce. So let's say a big designer comes and creates a big building that people can use and mints it in 300 editions. People can go and buy that space, and we have an incentive system for the best architects in the world to come in, create the foundations of people's lives in this immersive world, because they'll be able to play around with these spaces and decorate them and curate stuff in it and hold events. And so the land in the end, like kind of the world, the matter itself is created by design. It's design becomes land in a sense. And so that's an interesting way that we've been able to like attract the coolest possible architects, like Artifact being one of the designers, but also some others that are in the works that I could speak about, but no need. Um, and we're able to have just the coolest creations possible.
The other question I was speaking to 6529 about, I just wanted to hear it from you, is how many people do you think you can have in a space at the same time interacting? Because that's one of the historical constraints of even Epic Games, even Fortnite. It's about 300 people max in some of these. How are you thinking through that?
Well, I mean, like, again, as for all the other things, we are iterative, and we fixed. I mean, 300 is today on the 1st of June in 2022. But like, as we need to have more people in these spaces, we'll do the effort necessary to host more people in these spaces. Until now, the max we've done is 250 for like the Gogoshian Artifact event. So another incredibly interesting thing that we did with Artifact is that we've managed to host Takashi Murakami show, which was held at the Gogoshian in New York about 2 or 3 weeks ago, the 15th of June, I believe. And at the same time as this show was happening in real life at Gogoshian, one of the most prestigious galleries in the world, if not the most prestigious gallery in the world, in OnCyber, you had all the community members from Artifact, some of the community members from Artifact that weren't there to attend the event in the physical world. So in New York, that all like tuned in into the space and all connected with each other, and there was music playing, and then the founders of Artifact, Benito, Chris, and Zapsio all joined to like give a talk and an AMA kind of with their community. So yeah, some very interesting things have been happening in world for sure.
Talk me through the story of how 6529 came to you.
Okay, yeah, I mean 6529.
I mean, he's not lacking ambition in this, is he?
No, definitely not. And I mean, one thing is that people don't get about 6529 is that he's ever since the very beginning. So he started a completely new persona on Twitter.
Okay? That's right.
That no one knew about. It was an account with very few followers, and directly came into OnCyber and created a space. Messaged me on Twitter, and we were also pretty early in our adventure. Messaged me on Twitter and directly had all these big ideas. It didn't come like with the success of his account or with the community that he's built. That was back in, I would say it was in August, maybe in July. And so
is that all?
I think it would be July.
I can't get my head around how fast this stuff has happened.
Oh, that's very old. Like that's almost a year ago. It's very, very, very old in this space. I mean, so many things have happened ever since that. Like we were at the time when 6529 probably like we started working together. We were maybe 5 or 6 in the team, and the usage was so much lower than that. And not saying like that anything changed there, but it's just like it was a whole lifetime ago. And so 6529 came in, and first like there was this trend for like big collectors in the NFT space to like create their own cyber galleries and show them with the world in Twitter. It kind of became a community and a cultural thing in the NFT space to have an OnCyber gallery to connect with your fans and share the art that you collect, etc., for artists and for collectors and for even like some art galleries that got built on top of this of our tech. So some people that would create galleries themselves, curate art, and take a commission out of artists that sell in their spaces. And so at the time, it was a pretty big thing to do that, and 6529 directly saw kind of where it could go. I think we've also shown that like we were really good at building a product and at listening to users and getting the right UX for them to be able to interact in world. And at some point, it just became obvious that as he had this idea of a big metaverse himself, that we would be able to power it as an infrastructure, so that he could go and host events and create a bunch of places for people to visit, and that our tech would be able to power that and allow him to like just edit the spaces, hold events, do concerts and whatnot. And it's been going really well. So it's crazy to think about it that way because I've never really looked back, but we've come a very, very long way.
I just cannot believe how fast you've done this with so few people and how far you've come. And as you said, you only just started as well, but you've come a long way in a very short period.
Yeah, and I mean, I think so. One thing about that, I think that in this space, all the teams that I see that are the most productive and killing it on the day-to-day are smaller teams rather than bigger teams. I think that the space needs agility. Like you cannot have big organizations are very hard to manage, and I think about it as a ship. A very big ship is much harder to like turn around than a smaller one. So being able to have a team that's super interconnected, super connected to the mission itself that the organization has, and aware of every single development, so that they could change kind of what they do on the day to day. So um, for example, that a designer knows there's a problem here and they're able to fix it, or that there's this new thing there and they're able to fix it to like influence their work there is super important. And so I think there's something about Web3 where it's different rules. It's more about like small quantity, but very, very high quality and high output per head than the opposite way. I mean, like as long as you have people that are incredibly committed to the mission of the organization and passionate about what they're building, you could get the output of a team of hundreds of people with very few.
The other metaverse experience I've only just been, somebody's just showed me, which is somewhat similar. I think it's rendered in the browser, is Vatom. Do you know Vatom at all?
I haven't heard of it, no.
No, they're creating corporate metaverses, but they've got kind of PFP authentication and some of the similar kind of stuff. Haven't really dug in yet. I'm trying to find out more about them, but it looks kind of interesting. So what are the next features that people can expect for you to release that you've been working on? The community's kind of pointed you in that direction. What are the next key things?
I mean, like I kind of know about I always know about the next 3 months that have a kind of more blurry vision about the rest. I think we know kind of where we're going, where we want to build like a very casual product for metaverse consumption.
Sorry, just to interrupt a sec.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you're basically running 3-month plans, right? The only other person I've ever heard do that was CZ when I spoke to him. He's like, oh, I don't plan anything longer than 3 months.
Yeah, that's a pretty nice comparison. I think it's the only way in this space. Like you cannot know, you cannot predict things for longer. I think so. As long as the culture is pretty clear and that the long-term mission is clear, I think that the exact things we work on do not need to like extend over 3 months. I think that would be, first off, overkill, and second off, constraining for the things that you might want to build. And here the idea is to be so connected to the community that we're able to cater to their needs nonstop. If we stop listening to them, or like just say, hey, we have this for like the next year, we're not going to listen to you anymore because this is what's planned, we would at some point just disconnect from our users and what they need.
But again, I can't really understand this because everybody else like wants to build a product and it takes them a year. And what you're doing is getting out an MVP version within 3 months and testing it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like we have releases almost every week. We have one big release, or at some point in the very beginning, we had big releases every day. So I think that the agility that we have, the agility that we have and the ability to listen to our community, build for them, get back to them and say, hey, this is what we have, what do you think? I think every single product release in the end, first, like there's one MVP product release that we do, and then the release itself like takes a few weeks of iteration before it's stable. So yeah, I mean, So the 3 months plan in the end, although it seems like a short amount of time, for us it's a huge amount of time to be able to ship features and to test them. So like in the next few months we have the 3 months plan has an entirely different product at the end of the 3 months, in terms of everything more elevated, everything more immersive, a few use cases that are more covered, like concerts and Twitter Spaces and stuff like that. That just makes the experience even more skeuomorphic and more interesting. On the other end, we really want to be the metaverse for creators, and allowing the builders to come and just have all the incentives they need and have that be as aligned as possible with us to create the most interesting worlds for people to play around in. So one thing to expect for sure is that ever since the start, we've been a highly curated platform for builders to create stuff. And so until now, we have about 15 spaces max, 2 of them being from Artifact and some of them being from very interesting virtual architecture studios in the world. We're going to open that up. So we're going to let more and more and more people create spaces, mint them, and monetize on top of them. So for other people to play around with. So it's this idea of composability of creativity. We have one end creator that could be a collector, an artist, a gallerist, you call it an event manager, you call it, and it could be them if they have a use case in the metaverse. We have base spaces designed by architects. We have all the artworks and 3D models and videos and 2D and static images that are created by NFT artists all across the world, because the fact that they create that they mint stuff on chain makes it easy for us to just pull into that like sea of content. And we have the creators themselves. So the creators are able to play around with spaces, with these assets from all these different people. At some point, they'll be able to play around with the creative output of a few other segments, and just create one experience and create themselves one experience based on the composability that we offer to them. So the idea is to maximize as much as we can every single component of the composability of this creativity. I never said it. These different components of creativity, it's to maximize each one of those so that composability becomes more, first, easier, but more extensive in general, and let people just play around with as much content as they can.
Yeah, because it creates network effects. So it grows faster, it has more intrinsic value because the value of the network, etc. I mean, it's very clever to do it that way, while others have made it much more difficult because they've been more exclusive.
Well, it's really interesting to speak about network effects in this instance, because I believe that the network effect itself doesn't necessarily benefit us directly. The network effect benefits the whole whole network.
It has to. If not, there's no network effect.
Yeah. So the idea is to be the best at facilitating network effects that exist outside of our control and outside of our benefit, in a sense. Which is why very early on, what we decided is to build in the open, use open content, never lock people in for those reasons, but rather be the best facilitator of these network effects within our product, with very good UX and very good tools for people to create, upload, play around, and yeah.
So have you even raised capital in all of this?
We have. So back in August, we went through 2 very fast rounds of financing. First one was, I was still in my room in Morocco, and I met a few very interesting angels. It's something that would have been thought of as impossible a few years back, but the fact that right now, COVID happened and Web3 happened, and the fact that someone with no funding experience before, nothing like that, that I was able to go and raise capital from all these people was quite interesting. So yeah, we raised back then, and some angels include 6529, but also Crybrat and a few other very, very interesting people. And then went through a second round a few weeks after, because I met with Jesse Walden from Variant, and I just very much connected with him. I don't think I would have taken capital from anyone else right after the first fundraising, but he was very convincing, and so we raised another round, about $5.5 million then, from Jesse, from TCG, from Starry Night, so the 3AC and Vincent Van Doe, and also a few angels that have been super, super helpful ever since the start. One of them being Packy McCormick, but also some others.
Packy's a good guy.
Packy's the best, yeah.
And was TCG, that was Jared, I suppose.
Yeah.
Jared. Yeah, really good guys.
Yeah. Generally, like, I mean, it was just, it made so much sense. I'm not the type, I'm not a fundraiser, I'm not a salesman. Actually, like, I'm the opposite of that. And being able to connect with people with a common goal is very interesting. I'm also a sole founder, so it was very nice to onboard more.
Really?
Yeah. So
that's hard. That's hard.
It's hard, but like once you find the right partners to back you up and have shared incentives, and of course, like, the most importantly, once you have the right team, because like, I might be a sole founder, but all of my team I consider as co-founders in a sense. Like, everyone's been so my team is the best possible, really. So in the very beginning, it's hard, but at the moment you find the right backers and the right team members, it's not as hard anymore, and it's just like shared responsibility across.
Ryan, I'm just blown away by all of this. I just think, well done. You've done something absolutely incredible. I think you moved the whole space forward. You've done it in a way that I can't imagine how you've done it, and you've attracted great people that invested in you, because I know those guys and they're all brilliant, and the whole project with 6529 and then Artifacts. It's amazing stuff. You've got to look back occasionally and go, holy shit, I've just done this in no time at all.
There's still so much to be done, and I always think back of that Kobe interview that asked, like, he asked, like, is the job done? No, not yet. So, like, no, the job is not done for us. I think that there's still a very, very long way to go for first for NFTs to be considered more normal and more understood by so many people in the population. And I think that we have a very strong opportunity for like, to be a big actor in making everyone understand what NFTs are and what they can do with them. So as long as we're still, as long as like NFTs aren't mainstream, I don't think our mission is done. So like, we're not gonna slow down.
Fantastic. Well, brilliant. I'm really excited to see what you do. I know we're going to be building using your technology as well. So I'm kind of excited to go on that journey, because, as I said, the moment I saw what you'd done, I said, I need to speak to you. I reached out to you immediately and said, look, I really want to talk to you.
Yeah, I remember. And I was very, very stoked as well. So very happy to have done this with you. And yeah, looking forward to the next one.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. I really look forward to it.
Cool.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed the video. At Real Vision, we help you understand the complex world of finance, business, and the global economy with in-depth analysis from real experts. Join the revolution at realvision.com.